thank you all again for being here. When you're going through divorce, it's really hard to just find the time at the end of your day to hop on and hit start, or to even find the time to sign up for our webinar tonight. Especially now, it's the end of the school year, which is always a complete disaster if you have kids. There's a million things going on. So even if you just hopped on and hit play, poured yourself a glass of wine, and are sitting here with us, thank you for finding the time to be here. We're going to talk to you all about money tonight and how it relates to divorce. But before we talk about money, I want to acknowledge something else. Money's often, whether it's divorce or any other part of life, money's not actually always about money. There's a lot of emotion that comes into money and our thoughts and feelings and stories we tell ourselves about money. And also, divorce is not just a transaction. It's not just divorce. It's the ending of a marriage. It's a change in identity. It's a huge transition. It's uncertainty. It's grief. It's fear. And the first thing clients say to me when I start working with them 99% of the time is, am I going to be okay? What am I going to do? How is this going to end? And am I going to be okay? And I can promise all of you here tonight, just like I promise every client I get on a call with, that you will be okay. We're glad you found Vesta. There were so many amazing people and professionals within Vesta, which is why they founded Vesta many years ago. So we are all here to take care of you and make sure you're on the right path and help you be okay. Nobody likes to talk about money. It's not fun. Sometimes it's a little boring and it's emotional. So I want to talk to you a little tonight in a few minutes about how to make your financial decisions feel different and take them and make them from a different place, maybe a different mindset, maybe a little bit of a different standpoint. From the perspective of you, the money stories you've told yourself, your worthiness within your financial landscape, and from your nervous system. Because a lot of how we look at money comes from our subconscious, our nervous system, and our own self-worth. But before we begin, like I begin every one of these presentations, I just want to begin with a little breath work. Because, like I said, money is very stressful and emotional for people. It hits a lot of core wounds. And also, it's 6:30. Like I said, it's the end of the school year, and everyone, I'm sure, has had a long day. Especially if you're joining us, you're going through a divorce or have been through a divorce. So we recognize how much you have going on. So I want to remind you, we cannot see you. We cannot see anyone's faces on the screen. So I'm going to invite everyone to close their eyes. If you feel comfortable with your eyes closed, and just begin to breathe. Just begin to allow yourself to settle in from your day, noticing the room that you're sitting in, the chair or the space that you're sitting on. And just for a moment, allow yourself to be. Maybe you're allowing yourself to be grounded and present and just here in the space that you're in, your here and your now. Just noticing whatever you notice, noticing the weight of your body where you're sitting. Maybe we notice your feet grounded into the floor. Maybe you're just even noticing that you have feet attached to your body. And just noticing your breath, inviting your breath as your eyes stay heavy and closed to get a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper. Taking notice of any sounds you hear in your room, outside of your room, or maybe even going on outside of your house. Anything that you might hear right now other than my voice, just take a second to acknowledge it and notice it. Maybe we start to notice the temperature of the room, or if there's some sun left out there still that's coming in a window. Just noticing your environment and how it all feels. Continue to stay with your breath for just a little bit longer with those really deep inhales and really deep exhales. Seeing if you can notice them travel all the way up the length of the body, all the way down to the length of the body, right out through the bottoms of your feet. And again, just drawing the breath all the way up the length of the body to the top of your head. And all the way down the length of the body, out through the bottoms of your feet. And now we're going to start to change your breath just a little bit to go into a little bit of nervous system breathing. And this breath is going to start to signal to your nervous system that in this moment, you're safe. So, as we do this, we're going to begin to inhale nice and deep for a count of 5. We're going to hold that breath in for a count of 2. And then we're going to breathe out and let that breath go for a count of 8. I'm just staying with this breath for another minute or two, inhaling for 5, holding for 2, and exhaling for 8. And let's just let yourself go into those breaths on your own for a minute at your own pace, just really allowing that breath to flow through your body. Just noticing what you notice, noticing as you're letting that breath exhale. If you're noticing any tightness or tension anywhere, and if you do, just allow it to be there. Give it a little recognition. Notice it, recognize it, and just allow it to be. Maybe we sink into it a little bit. And staying with the breath or going back into a deeper, more natural breath, whatever feels good to you. Let's just talk about the word money and finances and maybe like divorce and financial statements. And let's think about, as I'm saying those words, where you immediately feel this in your body. Did your chest get tight? Did your shoulders pull up? Did you feel something in your throat? It's going to be a little different for everybody, but let's just give it a little space to be recognized. So, wherever, if anywhere, there is a sensation that showed up when your body, when I just mentioned all those words, just lean into that sensation for a minute. Allow yourself to see it, allow yourself to notice it. Really just connect with that feeling and allow it to be there. Leaning into it, sitting with it, knowing that it's okay. Knowing that sometimes these sensations, when things feel stressful or hard, come in to protect us, even if it doesn't feel really great at the time. It's our body's way of trying to help, it's our body's way of trying to protect us. So maybe even thanking that sensation for showing up, thanking that sensation for being there and trying to help you and trying to protect you. And just allow yourself to sit with that sensation, leaning into it, noticing when you lean into it. Does it get stronger? Does it get lighter? On a scale of 1 to 10, how strong is it? And as we lean into this sensation, know that it's okay for it to be there. Send it a little gratitude. And then allow yourself to go in to those 5 to 8 breaths again. That inhale for 5, that hold for 2, that exhale for 8. Allowing your body to just know in this moment it is safe. And now, as you're doing these 5 to 8 breaths and you're feeling nice and grounded and connected and heavy, start to say to yourself, in this moment, I am safe. In this moment, I know I am going to be okay. In this moment, I know I am enough and I know there is enough. And I know that I am going to come to a place of peace. And just notice as we say those words to ourselves how those land in your body. And allow all of those feelings and sensations to be there. Leaning into whatever sensation is coming up. Now, does it feel like peace? Does it feel like an exhale? Does it feel like freedom a little bit? Or maybe something entirely different? Just allow whatever it is to be there as you stay with those 5 to 8 breaths. I'm going to stay with these 5 to 8 breaths for one more round. And then when you're ready, just start to alert yourself, become a little bit more awake, letting the breath come back to a little bit more of a natural place and natural pace. And then when you're ready, you can slowly begin to let your eyes float open, taking a second to readjust to the room, to come back to the here and now. Maybe you move your body a little bit just to wake up. We don't want to shock your nervous system. So I'm going to continue to talk a little bit more about divorce and money now, but letting yourself come back to the here and now at your own pace. We want to be very gentle with your nervous system. So one of the biggest things I've learned about with working with clients through divorce and all the aspects of finances through divorce, as I said before, is money is never about actual money or only just about money. Money is about what it represents. It represents security, freedom, choices, control, and self worth, and also probably many other things too. Many people tell me they're worried about their finances during the divorce, but also especially after the divorce. And when we really break it down and we look at it further, they're asking a lot of questions when they're asking questions about money. They're asking, can I trust myself? Am I going to be okay? Can I even do this? Should I be doing this? And these, yeah, they're kind of money questions, but they're really more life questions and nervous system questions. So I'd like to give them a lot of the attention and compassion they deserve. When we are living in survival mode, which many of us are when we're pre divorce, going through divorce, or even after divorce, we tend to make a lot of financial decisions differently than we would if we were not coming from a place of survival mode. In survival mode, as human beings, we tend to rush, we tend to avoid, we tend to settle and throw in the towel. And I think every person in the entire world in survival mode at one point or another panics. We freeze. Sometimes we focus on the immediate thing that's right in front of us that may give us a little bit of relief or maybe a quick fix, even if it makes us feel better for just a second, instead of focusing on the long term and the long term outcomes. But with a regulated nervous system and support and help from a CDFA like Tom, you begin to relax. You begin to feel clearer and calmer. You begin to have the ability to tap into your own inner self. Also, you begin to think and ask better questions. You begin to advocate for yourself more, stand up for yourself more, and find some more empowerment. When we get to this place with the help of people like Tom and Renee, we are able to look at post divorce through a different lens, not just from now, but from what our life will look like and we want our life to look like 10 years from now. So instead of simply just getting through today to get to tomorrow, we're planning the rest of our lives and giving ourselves security and peace and regulation of our nervous system for our entire lives. Because you the best way you can come into I keep saying this, but the best way you can come into this part of your divorce is with a regulated nervous system. It's so important to know how you regulate your nervous system. Is it yoga? Is it a kickboxing class? Is it meditation? Is it walking? Is it meeting friends for coffee, journaling, tapping, whatever it is? Really exploring what works for you and having those options really accessible to you is going to make all the difference in your finances through your divorce and honestly, forever. We want to help you focus and learn about whatever you can do to make you and your body feel safe. Another thing I like to focus clients in on, and I'll try to send this to Mandy so we can send you some of these questions in your email tomorrow, is exploring your money story. I often say to my clients when I start working with them, which seems like a weird question when you're talking to a divorce coach, is what did you learn about money growing up? What were the stories your family and maybe for generations had around money? Maybe you heard money doesn't grow on trees. You had to work really hard and suffer and struggle to succeed, or people that are wealthy or have money are bad or selfish, or maybe it was there's never enough, or maybe the finances were only in control of one person in your family. Maybe money created a lot of conflict in your family. We take those stories and those beliefs from childhood into adulthood, and everyone has them. So our goal is to never judge anybody for them. Every single human on earth has these stories that we tell ourselves. So the goal isn't for me to judge you or for you to feel judged or for you to judge yourself. It's for to create awareness in you. That's why I bring this to my clients' attention, because if we have an awareness of our story, we can recognize it and we can make different choices, and we can almost go into ourselves and backtrack that story and disprove it a little bit. So when I first start working with clients, I always send them to a CDFA. But before I do, Even sometimes if they're working with me before an attorney or a mediator like Jolie and Marty, I like to begin this process with them first. I don't like to start with numbers. I like to start with what is your vision? What do you, if you sit and you guys can close your eyes and just think, what do you want your life to feel like 5 years from now and 10 years from now? Not even necessarily what car do you want to drive, what house do you want to live in? Because that's more what it looks like. What do you want it to feel like? Do you want to have a peaceful life, a free life, a stable life, an adventurous life, a connected life, a grounded life, a creative life? Maybe you want all of it. But thinking about, okay, it's a random Tuesday morning, 10 years from now, you open your eyes, you wake up in the morning, where are you? What do you feel like? What do you want to feel like? Where are you living? What does your home feel like? What is the vibe of your home? What is the vibe of your day? What does the schedule of your day look like? Who do you enjoy spending time with? What brings you happiness and joy on this random Tuesday? And if we can get really clear on that vision, all your financial situations and decisions become a lot more clearer and easier. And it becomes a lot easier to make decisions because now you're going to be making decisions from a mind frame of your future rather than reacting to fear. So you are going to be reacting to the love of the life that you want in the future rather than reacting to the fear you're feeling now around the divorce, which is why I bring in people like Renee to help you because often the first point is the home, and that often is one of your bigger financial decisions. So it's so important to have all the stuff I'm talking about, but also all the right tools behind you. So the biggest thing you can do, create the vision, create the feeling, and build the right team of people to support you, like all of us here tonight. And often people say, but if I'm bringing in all these people, it's costing me so much money. And I get that. I got divorced. I get it. It feels incredibly expensive in the moment, but having a right plan, the right team, the right tools ahead of time is going to save you so much money, short term and long term, and also give you so much peace and grounding and save you so much emotional distress through the whole process, which is the most valuable piece of all. So I'm going to send you guys some journal questions after to help you move through some of the things I was just talking about. The one thing I want to bring up before I pass this to Renee is don't forget about yourself in your divorce. Often when I'm working with people, and I did this too, when you're going through a divorce, you might be, you're taking care, you're paying your attorney, you're paying coaches, you're paying CFAs, you're paying all these people, and you're supporting your kids. And you're busy and you're overwhelmed and you're exhausted and your mind is spiraling. And often what we do is sacrifice. But we sacrifice ourselves. We stop going to yoga. We don't spend the money even grabbing dinner with a friend. Maybe you give up your gym membership. You stop doing your hobbies, the self care things, the things that you love in order to save money. But when everything starts to become about sacrifice, at a time when you really need to pour into yourself, it becomes even more exhausting. It begins to feel even more depleting. And the focus on saving money, even on little things like coffee, almost has the opposite effect. So sometimes the smartest investment you can make in the short term that will bring you into the long term also is the investment in yourself, the investment in your health, your wellness, and your overall well being. Because every time you say no to yourself, you're teaching your nervous system, you're teaching your subconscious that you're not worth it, that you're not worth the time. And you start to come into the divorce in the process, looking at things from lack and scarcity versus abundance and an exciting, happy, and free future. So, our goal for you, for everybody on this call, for everybody, any of us ever meet that's going through a divorce, is not for you to simply survive through your divorce and for the rest of your life, but is to help you find and build a place and a new life that is safe, it's aligned, it's peaceful, it's meaningful, it's happy, it's free, and it's abundant. So, one day through your divorce, you wake up one morning and you realize you're not just rebuilding your life anymore, you're just simply living in your favorite world as your favorite self in the favorite life, in your most exciting life you could ever imagine, and whatever that means to you. So, with that, I am going to pass this over to Renee so she can begin talking to you about housing and what to do about your home when you're going through a divorce.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, I wish all of my clients could talk to somebody like Lisa before they come to me. She just puts us all in the right frame of mind, right? I get it. Nobody likes talking about money, right? We all grew up with different family money, right? Families bring up their children differently, and we all talk about money differently. Having that frame of mind that Lisa can help you come into this process at peace, I think. So thank you, Lisa. I truly enjoyed listening to that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the post-divorce and housing. There's a lot going on. So not only does the mortgage piece happen pre-divorce, but it happens post-divorce as well. So you need to talk to a lender early on in the process before your divorce is settled so you understand all of your options. But talking about post-divorce, there's still a lot. Even though your divorce is settled, you might think, "Oh, thank goodness that's over." But there's a lot that has to happen post-divorce pertaining to the home. So you may or may not have been the financial person in your household during your marriage, which is fine, right? Everybody takes on different roles in the household. But going forward, you are going to be the head of your finances of your new household, right? So we wanna make sure that you're putting yourself in the best position, and there's lots of people that can help. And so now that your divorce is settled, there's no going back, right? You've signed on the dotted line. There's very little that can be changed in your divorce settlement. There's some modifications that can happen with the kids or with support, but the division of that asset, that's done, that's final. There are very few circumstances that you'd be able to change that. So we wanna make sure that you're putting yourself in the best position for post-divorce and talk with a lender. Excuse me, so that you put yourself in the best place. So there's going to be a lot of dates on your final settlement agreement, things that you have to follow, right? Or you're gonna be in contempt of court. And so depending what's happening with your house, there will be things that you need to do, whether you're keeping the house, whether you're selling the house, whether your spouse is keeping the house and buying you out. There's all kinds of dates involved and timeframes that have to be followed. Again, hopefully you spoke with a lender, preferably a CDLP like myself, where we can help you understand all of the options and we can help you post divorce to make sure we want to make sure that your divorce settlement agreement is written in a fashion that we can actually execute on the housing piece post divorce. So, again, whether you're keeping the house, whether your spouse is keeping the house, whether you're selling it, you've got some work to do, right? So there's the mortgage, there's the title or the deed to the property, and there's some things with homeowners insurance that you'll need to address. So if you are the spouse and keeping the house and you've been awarded the house in the divorce settlement, if your spouse is on that mortgage with you, likely you're going to need to remove that spouse from that mortgage. So there's refinances, there's mortgage assumptions. Do you owe your spouse any money? And is that coming from the mortgage or where is it coming from? Is it coming from other accounts that you need to follow up on? Again, all kinds of dates that you've got to make sure that you're following because we don't want you to be in contempt, right? Hopefully you've paid attention to your final settlement and you've got some timeframes again to follow. If you are keeping the home and you need to refinance and perhaps you are receiving support, there's also some dates and timeframes involved. So a lender can use support, whether it's child support or alimony. We can use that income to qualify you for a mortgage, but there's some rules and dates and timelines involved with that as well. So we want to make sure that we're documenting things appropriately so that when it does come time to do that refinance or that assumption that you've documented properly to be able to use that as income. So the time frame that you're receiving the support, also where you receive it. So not to get too far into nitty-gritty here, but if you are receiving support and you receive it to an account that your spouse is still on with you, a lender can't use it. So we want to make sure we're setting up the proper accounts for the support to be received in. And the rules also require that I know a lot of times there will be some squaring up at the end of the month, right? I owe you this, you owe me this, and the spouse paying support will deduct for things that you might owe. And unfortunately, from a lender's perspective, we wouldn't be able to use that support. A lender has to see the exact amount. If the support's $500 a month, we have to see $500 going into your account. Funds coming out are okay, but we have to show the support coming in. So just a few tips there to make sure post-divorce that you're getting all your ducks in a row and preparing for anything that you need to do. Credit. Credit's super important post-divorce, whether you are staying in your home, buying a new home, renting, doesn't matter. Credit is going to be huge. Your credit score is going to matter, and we can help you with that. We can take a look at it, see if there's any dings that need to be addressed. And we have some programs that we could help you. We have some what if simulators. If we pay this down or we close this or whatever the case might be to help you repair or increase your credit score. Talk with a lender early. We do have some resources to help you with that. And also, if you are the spouse keeping the house, you really need to talk to your homeowner's insurance agent because depending whose name is on your existing policy, you need to make sure that you are the named insured on that policy now post-divorce if you're keeping the house, because God forbid there's a claim and your spouse is the one that's still on the policy, you may not have coverage. So that's going to be super important to talk to your agent and address who is on the insurance policy. If you're the spouse that is not keeping the house, whether you're being bought out by your spouse or you're buying a new house, what are your plans with those funds, right? Where are you going to put them, right? Obviously, that's where Tom comes in and he can help you with that and understand your options. Are you going to rent for a little bit and you want to tuck that money away somewhere safely? Or are you going to use it perhaps to purchase a new home? What does that look like? Where are we going to put the money? How much is it going to be? What does my financial future look like? And Tom's going to talk a lot about that. So I'll let him expand on that a bit. Post-divorce, if you are not keeping the house, you will have to cooperate with your spouse because your spouse is either, whether you're selling the house or you're refinancing the house, you're going to need to come off title. So you will have to be a party to that to sign off on the title. Title is super important, and so likely your settlement agreement is going to have some language in there that says you need to cooperate. So again, keeping track of those dates and those responsibilities post-divorce is going to be super important. We have a lot of clients that want to jointly own the home post-divorce for a particular length of time. Some examples we'll see the kids are junior in high school and we're going to co-own the home for 2 years until the kids are done high school and then we're going to sell the house. And that all sounds great. Co-owning. Oh boy, there's a lot to unpack there. So first, we want to make sure that your settlement agreement has all the details in there. Who is responsible for the mortgage payment? Who is going to get to claim the mortgage payment on their taxes? Who's going to pay if the roof leaks? When you do sell the house, how is the equity going to be split? So there's a lot of things to think about. Again, homeowners insurance comes into play here. If you are jointly owning the house, you're likely not living in the house together. And that's where you need to make sure that your insurance policy is up to date, even if you jointly own the house. If the named insured is not living in the house, but they're on the policy as living in the home, that could be an issue, right? So you want to make sure to check on that. I want to talk about title for a moment. So we're in a Massachusetts hub here, right? And so in Massachusetts, when you are married and you own a home together, you hold your title to the property likely in tenancy by entirety. And what that means is there's a lot of protections for you. It's actually a good thing. Tenancy by entirety means that you both jointly own the home, and you can't sell off a portion of your home to somebody else. Nobody can put a lien on the house against one of you. If you get sued, they can't put a lien against one party's portion of the ownership. So those are all good things. But the moment you get divorced, even if you're jointly owning the home, the tenancy by entirety automatically reverts to tenants in common. And now all of those protections are gone. So if one of you passes away and you're both still on title, but you're now divorced, your portion of that home can now be separated, right? And so your portion of that ownership now goes to your estate. And if you don't have an estate plan in place, now it has to go through probate. And now the courts are going to tell you who owns your share of the house with your now ex-spouse. So it gets a little tricky with title. So you want to make sure we can help you with that. We can address that and talk about some options. It will put a cloud on the title, if you will. So meaning if you're the spouse in the house and your now ex-spouse gets sued and they put a lien on their portion of ownership in the home, now you can't sell the house, nor can you refinance the mortgage until that lien is paid off. So again, we just want to make sure that all of these things are addressed. I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody. My contact information is in the chat, so you can book a call with me. My consultations are free, and we can talk about your specific situation and things that you'll want to make sure that are addressed in your settlement agreement, but then post-divorce, we want to make sure that we can actually execute that for you. So that's it for me tonight. I am going to pass it over to David, and he's going to talk a little bit more about housing with you.
Thank you, Renee. Yeah, the kind of like with regular home purchases and sales, my role usually doesn't come into play until all other options have been exhausted. So generally when folks come to me with a divorce, I'm usually making sure that have we exhausted all buyout options, and are there any plans to keep the house? Because once we get the process started on this end, there's usually no turning back. But we want to make sure that we're actually moving forward in that direction if that's the case, so that it's going to go. And my biggest role is the real estate world crosses the legal boundaries all the time, and we want to make sure that we are getting the attorneys involved when we need to, and that we're making sure that they're involved when they have to as well. So Renee was mentioning some of these issues with title and things like that. We have a different process that we have to follow if, say, both one party is not on title, but they're going to be receiving proceeds because of that, the nature of the agreement. It's a different process that we need to follow with making sure that we have all the decision-making parties involved. And then same thing is once you've worked with Tom and Renee to perhaps purchase a property afterwards, we want to make sure that your financing is in good order before moving forward on a purchase. If you have any particular questions on the home sale side of it, particularly, I'm more than happy to reach out and set up a one-on-one as well. Every situation is different, but the biggest thing I can't stress is that in these situations, the front end research is going to protect the process along the way. I've seen many cases where folks are just like, we need to sell the house, and they are not in any position to do it because either someone's not on title, there's something else that's holding things up. And if you were to list it and try to sell that house in the middle of it, it could come back, not move forward and cause a lot of problems. So that's what my role is on here. And as unfortunately, when the home gets involved, things tend to get a little more contentious down the line. And my role is to be a neutral between both parties and make sure that we try to keep things as calm and sterile throughout the process to keep things moving forward. And I believe Maddie and Jolie, are you guys going on next?
Marty and I are taking over. Thanks,
All right.
David.
All right.
All right. So Marty and I are going to tag team our legal section. We're just going to start out with a little bit of a disclaimer. So Marty and I are licensed to practice in the state of Massachusetts, and divorce and family law is state specific. We are going to be speaking generally tonight, but if you are joining us from another state, you will want to consult with an attorney licensed in your state. Okay, so now with that out of the way, we're going to be focusing, because tonight's topic is smart money moves after divorce. We're we're going to be focusing on some of the things that are going to be happening once your divorce is finalized. So, with retirement accounts, you may have heard of something called a QDRO. It's a QDRO, and it stands for a Qualified Domestic Relations Order. And this is something that you will need to have prepared by a QDRO specialist. Some attorneys are able to prepare these, but there's lots of financial specialists that specialize in these kind of QDRO preparations. And the QDRO specialists, they will prepare the QDRO after your separation agreement is approved by the court if you're able to reach a settlement, or if a judgment is issued by the court if you have a trial. And what the QDRO does is it allows funds in retirement accounts to be transferred from one spouse to another without the typical taxes and penalties that would be assessed if you were to just try to access retirement funds regularly outside of the divorce context. So it is a large savings. And if you are going to be transferring retirement funds, you'll want to go through the QDRO process. Once the QDROs are prepared after the divorce is finalized, they will need to be submitted to the court along with a motion to enter them. So if you are working with an attorney, usually you'll be keeping your attorney through the QDRO process to be able to get this portion completed. You might be thinking you're saying goodbye to your attorney, but usually you will be keeping them on a little bit longer than you may have initially thought. After the divorce, you will also probably want to update the beneficiaries of your retirement accounts because when you were married, you may have previously had your beneficiary as your spouse. And now that you're divorced, you may want to change that to either another family member or your children if they're old enough. So, something to think about is updating those beneficiaries once the divorce is finalized. A word of caution here, you do not want to update your beneficiaries prior to the divorce being finalized. In Massachusetts and in a lot of other states, once a divorce is filed, there are certain automatic restraining orders on finances that go into effect, and you can get in trouble for changing things like beneficiaries on retirement accounts and things like that. So don't complete this step until after your divorce is finalized, or you could be at risk of a contempt action. Okay, Marty, you want to talk about life insurance?
Yes. So another type of insurance that we may need to deal with post divorce is life insurance. So sometimes in the divorce settlement, if you're doing an agreement or even through the judgment, you may be required to carry a certain amount of life insurance with the other party as the named beneficiary in order to secure either your child support or alimony payments or until the children are emancipated. So you want to make sure that you are in compliance with any of these provisions that you've either agreed to or have been ordered by the court. Alternatively, if you have other life insurance policies that you are not required to have a specific beneficiary designation on, you're going to want to update those so that they accurately reflect who you want to have receive those proceeds upon your death. It's something that it's an important to do. Oftentimes we forget. So just a little housekeeping there. Talking a little bit about debt and support payments. So, another smart money move after divorce is ensuring that you make timely payments of any debts or liabilities you're responsible for in the divorce and any support that you're ordered to make. It's pretty self explanatory, but you don't want to end up back in court on a contempt for violating an order that potentially you may be responsible to pay your ex's attorney's fees. So, this is an important piece to truly understand what you're responsible for. And sometimes we see it a lot of times in many of my cases, I'm seeing it around taxes, right? Where if there might be some back owed taxes, and we'll be putting provisions in the agreement as to who's liable to pay what. So you just want to make sure that you've gone over, if you're executing a separation agreement, either in mediation or with an attorney, that you truly understand what are your obligations post divorce. That you, as I think somebody said it, I don't remember if it was Lisa or Renee, somebody says there's a whole lot of language in there about things that you say that you're going to do. It's really important to understand that when you sign it and then go back and make sure you're actually doing it. And I think debt and support payments are one that not everybody always comes back to. Jolie.
Yeah. So a lot of clients that I work with during the divorce process ask me if they should be updating their estate plan while the divorce is pending in court. And Marty and I are not estate planning attorneys. We are family law attorneys, but I do have some general advice on this topic. And that is during the divorce, you can, and I think it is a good idea that you create or update certain estate planning documents. And those would be your healthcare power of attorney, your healthcare proxy, and your durable power of attorney on your finances. This way, if something happens to you while the divorce is still pending in court and you become incapacitated, the decision maker for these very important issues is not going to be your soon to be ex spouse. You may think that this is something that is unlikely to happen, but none of us have a crystal ball. And I have had cases where, in the middle of divorce proceedings, a spouse has gotten into a catastrophic accident, a car accident, or has had suffered a stroke or a heart attack and ended up in a coma. And these things do happen. And then if there are documents and they're outdated and the spouse is named as the healthcare proxy, then they have to follow those documents. Or if there's no documents in place, then the next of kin is the one who is by law allowed to make those decisions. So this is just something to think about while your divorce is pending, and divorces can take, if you're in mediation, usually those agreements are a little bit quicker and your divorce case can be resolved faster than if you're litigating in court, but those cases can drag on for years and you can be in litigation for a substantial amount of time. So I do think it is prudent to update or create those documents if you don't have them in place already. However, when it comes to your will or trust, you don't want to update those documents until after your divorce is finalized. And the reason for that is because when we are executing a separation agreement, which is essentially like your divorce contract that you're asking the judge to approve to become your divorce judgment, we are basically revoking all prior wills and everything else, all estate plans that you have already executed. So you don't want to create something and then have a separation agreement saying that is all now null and void. So you're going to want to wait until your divorce is finalized and then either create or update new will, any kind of trust with an estate planning attorney after the divorce is finalized.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such an important piece. And so a lot of people don't want to have to deal with more attorneys post divorce, but it is something that is absolutely worthwhile and very important. So I just want to end on talking about planning for a future, maybe attorney or mediator fees. I know nobody wants to hear that. You're done. You're like, we're done. We want to be done with the attorneys. We don't want to do this. But it is important to understand that if you're getting to the stage where you're finalizing your divorce, but there's some parts of it that may be modifiable and some parts that aren't. The modifiable parts typically may or may not be alimony, issues with health insurance, any issues related to children in Massachusetts are always modifiable. You should plan that you may need to have fees to go back to court. A lot of times, what we see is if you're getting divorced and your kids are little, what you put in for a child support order now, maybe what you're putting in around, or even plans for whatever the kids' expenses are, might not be the same in 5 years from now. So there's a need to actually either go back to mediation if that's how you started to try and talk it through if you can't do it on your own, or actually have to hire an attorney to get you through the process. So it is something that it's important to look at, important to remember. And when you're dealing with your post-divorce plan, talking with someone like Tom, these are things that it's to keep considering. Hopefully nobody gets into these huge battles again, but it is important to remember that. So we're hopeful that this is very high level. I think the magic of the hour is coming, or the webinar is coming now with Tom. And so I want to turn it over to him and know that Jolie and I put our information there. We both offer some consultation, so feel free to connect with us. Tom, we're going to turn it over to you.
Thank you guys so far. I just want to say how much I love collaborating with all you guys because I learn something new every time. And comprehensive as I like to think I am on the financial side of things, just having your expertise available to me is fantastic and bringing that to bear for my clients. So let's see, where do I start? I would say I know this conversation is about planning post-divorce, but I really love to reiterate, build your team ahead of the divorce if possible. I know we have some attendees on here tonight that are post-divorce. But for those of you that are in the thick of it or just thinking about divorce, reach out and build your team earlier. It's nice to plan ahead wherever possible so you don't put yourself in a bind. Agree to something in your divorce agreement that is not actually executable. We want to try and avoid that wherever possible. Let's say you came to me post-divorce. A lot of people come to me. There's a stat, I think, that 80% of people change their financial advisors post-divorce. It's very typical that someone is the non-financial person in the household, and now post-divorce, you're on your own. If you weren't the financial person before, now you've got to take on that role. So there's a lot of responsibilities to that, but it's definitely doable. It's manageable. You can't do it all by yourself. No one can be an expert in Social Security, QDROs, insurance, all of this. It can seem really overwhelming, but let's break it off in bite-sized chunks. I'm not an expert in life insurance. I don't do life insurance, for example, but I have professionals that I can pull in that I really rely on that are experts in that field. So again, it's all about building your team together. I love that Lisa touched on the fact that it's not just all about the numbers. It's about planning out your lifestyle. It's not just about the transaction of divorce. It's what lifestyle do you want for the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years. So I've probably done about 200 financial plans in my career. And even people going through divorce, I like to insist on them doing their own individualized financial plans so they can think ahead. We want to think about things like what your lifestyle is going to look like. Are you going to run into a liquidity crunch down the road? How does college get paid for, etc.? But a lot of people, we started, as Lisa talked about, like, what do you want your lifestyle to look like? So that can be conversations not just about numbers, but are you loving your job? Do you hate your job? Do you want to get out of that? Would you like to dream about maybe a career move or retiring early or having the bandwidth to do something that's more fun? These are a lot of conversations that I talk to people about. I talk to them about retirement. Like there's plenty of stats around people getting depressed when they retire. It's a real thing. So how do you stay fulfilled, engaged, retain your sense of identity and fulfillment? So big picture stuff. But then a lot of people find value in the fact that I'm able to break down, okay, what's your income gap? Do you have a little additional income that you need to bring in from somewhere on a second job or get promoted? Or in a lot of cases, people are not fully living the life they should be. They do have plenty of cash flow and they're being overly frugal. A lot of the problem with people is they run these numbers in their head and they really don't put it down on paper. I use a really comprehensive software that kind of gets to the end point, which is looking at your probability of success and reaching your goals, however they're described to me, whether that's just paying for college and surviving or leaving a state for the kids, etc. We want to look at how do you optimize getting to that probability of success. And you can be too frugal or you can be a little behind the curve, maybe on the saving side. I don't tell people how they're going to live their life. I say, here are the different ways to get to where you want to be. So on a practical point of view, apart from all that detailed planning, we look at things like what your Social Security picture is going to look like. Talk about, are you able to get the spousal benefit based on your ex-spouse's income or their Social Security? If you were married more than 10 years, that can be an important factor, an important source of income. We look at when you should take that. I will reiterate that if you take the spousal benefit, it doesn't impact your ex-spouse at all. It doesn't knock down their benefit. You don't have to get their permission, any of that. So I spend a lot of time talking to clients about that. We like to look at your insurance, your risk. Again, I don't sell insurance. I don't have skin in the game there, but I like to pull in a lot of professionals to help me with that. A lot of divorce agreements, you agree that you'll maintain, say, $1 million till the kids are finished college, etc., or emancipated. That doesn't mean you can't take a second look to see if you can get that amount of insurance cheaper. So a lot of times we'll take a second look at that. Couple of homework things here. Health insurance, like if you get divorced and you want to stay on your spouse's insurance through COBRA, you have to notify the employer of your spouse within 60 days. So that's an important deadline to remember that. You guys spoke about QDROs. A lot of times I'm supervising, making sure the QDRO process goes well. A big thing for me, I think, is that the asset allocation. So this is where I really geek out on investment allocations, asset management, etc. But a lot of people, you're given a portfolio, like it could be your spouse's 401k. They could love tech stocks and growth stocks and be all in on that side of the things. Maybe they worked in technology, they love that. That doesn't mean that portfolio is right for you. There could be a lot of risk in there that you're not thinking about. Or maybe your ex was like super conservative. They have way too much in cash. That doesn't fit for your lifestyle. It's not balanced. We need to take a look at that and see how that fits in the overall picture for you. We need to look at your sources of liquidity. You might be fine now, you might have cash right now, but are you going to run into an issue a few years from now when you want to move properties, for example, when you need to put the kids through college? How do we start thinking forward a bit? And then one source of liquidity might be your house. We might pull in people like Renee again, for example, looking at, okay, in a few years from now, if we need to pull additional equity out of the house, what does that look like? What do we need to do to qualify for that? That's going to potentially be an ongoing source of liquidity that we might want to leverage at some point in the future. So we want to look at that as well. FAFSA, we have experts that can show you how to do FAFSA college applications. Could be really advantageous now to you that you're divorced. So there's some gamification there that we can get into. Just making sure when you do your taxes, that you're going to be doing taxes individually for the first time, making sure you're abiding by the divorce decree in terms of who gets head of household, etc., or other benefits out of that. It's really wide ranging. The point, again, to emphasize is no one can be an expert in all these different fields. The people here all on this call have been networking for 10, 20 years with professionals in all these different areas. And if it's something that's outside our kind of knowledge expertise, we know the people to pull in to help you with those situations. So I think most or all of us do free consultations here. We'd love to chat with you. And even if you're not the exact fit for us, or we're not the fit for you, we're going to point you in the right direction. Everyone here, their heart is in the right place, and they just want to get people the right advice and the right team to help them going forward. Just want to reiterate here that Q&A under more, if you want to pop some questions in there. We love answering your questions in the Q&A function here. Please don't be shy, and we'll knock out those questions for you. I'll turn it back to the rest of the panel here if they've anything to add. If I've missed anything, sorry, I've been yakking on a lot of different areas here. If there's something you guys want to address, let's call it out and chat about that. Should I put it back to you, Jolie, if you have anything to add there? Did I miss anything important?
That was great. Thank you, Tom. So if anybody has any more questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A and we can answer them here.
Oh, I think we had some questions from before the meeting too.
Yes.
Well, we can maybe take a look at those. There were some questions about credit repair there, I think, right, Dave?
Yeah, I think there was a question about in the divorce agreement that the other spouse was obligated to pay the mortgage and missed some payments, and it affected the other spouse's credit. And so there was a question about if there was any relief for the party whose credit was injured. And I think, David, you have somebody you recommend for credit repair? Maybe Renee does too.
Yeah. And when we say credit repair, you just want to make sure that it's actually someone that's a credit repair expert, not someone that's going to tell you to pay off some loans and hope your score goes up. What a credit repair expert will do is they're actually going to go and contest some of the negative marks on your record. There's no guarantee that the creditors will 100% get rid of them, but they usually, if they didn't follow the process right, or there was extenuous circumstances, sometimes they can get your history cleaned up and get you into a better spot. I've had it work for several clients where they've gone up from low 5s to high 6s in a matter of a year. They're very useful.
A legal standpoint, if somebody's obligated to make timely payments and they don't comply with that obligation, you could file a complaint for contempt against them in family court, and they could be found guilty, and you could seek some relief from the court, but the court doesn't have the authority to fix your credit, unfortunately. So you could get some relief through the family court, but like I said, it's a little bit limited. So you'd have to go another option to try to help with the credit situation.
Yeah. We had a question there on best investments for a small retirement account. One thing I forgot to mention, a lot of people will be shifting their financial planners. Like I said, 80% of people change financial planners after the divorce. A few pointers there. Just there's some important questions to ask. How the person gets paid. I'm bringing this up because sometimes people with smaller investment accounts, they're not economically viable for some of the planners, so they'll try and get as many fees out of them as they can, and that's not very cool. They'll maybe sell them like some annuity or some commission product that's very expensive that pays them a big commission. But you want to steer away from that. You want to ask how people get compensated. Like everyone's getting paid. No one's working for free. So are they charging you an annual fee, such as what I do? I charge 1% of assets under management for my financial planning clients. Or are they selling you a product that they can get a commission on? If they do that, are they getting you the right product? Are their interests aligned with you? Or are they just trying to sell a product that has the biggest fee out there? Sometimes people with smaller accounts, like the person that asked that question, you might be better off just buying like a target date fund, maybe something simple like that. Keep the fees low. I try and point people in the right direction. It's not always best that they work with someone that's going to gorge them on fees when they could do something fairly basic themselves to help themselves out. I also forgot to mention earlier, you should look up your investment advisor. There's a site called brokercheck.finra.org. I'll put it in the chat. You can look at the history of that investment professional. Do they have any black marks on their record? Any disciplinary history? We like to be trusting, but I've seen again and again, people have been ripped off by their tennis partners or their friends of a friend, or someone put them in something just inappropriate. So you always want to look at brokercheck.finra.org to look at the background of that person and their history. It does happen more than we'd like. Yeah, so that was one question I picked up on there, was someone asking about their investments on a smaller account.
There's a couple more questions. We are in the middle of a divorce, but we filed 2025 taxes jointly. We owe money back for both state and federal taxes due to my spouse having lower deductions according to the tax preparer. My spouse is insisting for us to split the tax bill 50-50. So from a legal perspective, so this is a marital debt. It's not, and so in Massachusetts, it would be an equitable division. This marital debt would be equally divided. And so there's a set of factors for how the court would assign how this debt would be split, but it's not automatically 50-50. So this is something that could be negotiated. If you have a divorce filed in court, this is something that you could potentially bring to the judge to get their feedback on. But I don't know. What are your thoughts, Marty?
Yeah, I think it's the typical lawyer answer, right? It depends. It's not necessarily, it's going to depend.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree
It's
with
something
you.
that could be negotiated. Yeah.
Yeah. And you got to figure out, I don't know how much it is. I lost the question exactly. So is that something worth fighting about? Maybe, but it depends on it's always a balance of how you want to negotiate that.
One thing to know, and Tom, I'm sure you can confirm this, in the eyes of the federal government, you both owe it. So
Right.
that they could take recourse against both of you.
Yeah. I think ideally, you want that written out and agreed on ahead of time in the divorce agreement, right? But yeah, they can come after both of you. That goes for credit cards as well. If you're still joint debt on any credit cards, we recommend you do not do that. Get that cleared up pre-divorce. They don't care that you're divorced. They can come after both of you. Yeah. I mean, on this credit, it can go after any of you. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times regarding the debt, it's in many of the cases that I'm working on, the settlements, we're trying to get as much of that debt paid off so that people are walking away free and clear. Sometimes that's when we're working with the CDFA, determining is this debt worth keeping or not. But when it's joint debt, if there's a risk, there's just a risk. And I think one of the things we talked about before is what's modifiable and what's not modifiable. And when you're in negotiations, you're really thinking about trading things, but some things that if it's not modifiable, say, I don't know, if you said the credit card debt, that's done, right? When the divorce goes through, that's done. You have a contempt about it, but you can't necessarily change that. And then say you offered to take half that for, I don't know, getting Christmas every year with the kids or something. But then that's something that can be changed. And so people just have to really think about when you're in the process of the entire picture. Everything is not one for one. You really got to think about the whole picture. And that's why having a team like this that knows all these ins and outs can really help you be strategic when you're negotiating so that you're set up for the most success in your future.
Another question, how much Social Security money will I get for my separated husband if I stayed separated and he dies, or if we just divorce? If his is higher. Hope that makes sense. Half of it versus all of it.
Yeah, I could take this one. I need to brush up a little bit on the widower benefit here, but that's an interesting one because the widower benefit, you get 100% of your late spouse's benefit versus half if you're divorced. If you're married more than 10 years, you divorce, you get half that benefit. So I guess, there is quite a difference there between 100% of that benefit and half of it. I think there is some nuances there, though. If you remarry, I think you lose that widower benefit. So you want to put some thought into this one here. I'm happy if you want to set up some time with me, we can go into that in more detail. There are a few new nuances there, but there is quite a difference, 100% versus. But you got to think holistically. Do your lifestyle, your freedom moving on, is that worth it? So happy to have that conversation.
Yeah. There was a question submitted in advance about divorcing a narcissist. And I know that's not the topic of tonight's presentation, but next Wednesday night, I'm giving a Vesta presentation on coercive control. So if that's something that you're interested in, we do have a presentation on that next Wednesday night. So you could sign up for that on the Vesta website. So I just wanted to mention that. But I don't see any more questions in the Q&A. So unless anyone wants to pop one in real quickly, I think we will be wrapping up.
Could I ask Jolie on that coercive control? Someone had mentioned that's an actual designation now that the police forces in Massachusetts, some of them are trained in that. It doesn't have to be physical abuse, right? And can you talk a little bit about how that looks like in the eyes of the authorities?
So Massachusetts expanded its definition of domestic abuse to include coercive control now, and it's now a basis that individuals can seek a restraining order and get restraining orders based off of. And so the police, we have a former police officer here, but he's not an active police officer. But I would hope that the police would be trained on the new definition of domestic abuse, which includes coercive control. But you are now able to secure restraining orders off of non-physical violence, this is new as of 2024. Massachusetts is on the cutting edge of the coercive control law in the United States. It's one of only a few states in the country that have codified this into their laws. So
it's not arrestable. It's not arrestable unless it's a violation of the restraint. It's not like you can report coercive control happening and somebody can get arrested, but it's a basis to get the restraining order. And if you get the restraining order and the restraining order gets violated, then it becomes an arrestable offense. So it's very layered and nuanced, as everything is. And we're going to see how it plays out, but it's great that Massachusetts is taking this next step for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So I don't see any more questions, but thank you for all of you for joining us tonight and sticking with us through this topic. We hope that you enjoyed the information that was presented to you and that you will answer the call tomorrow from the Vesta concierge and take advantage of the information and the consultations that we put into the chat tonight. And we look forward to speaking with you. So have a great night and we hope to chat with you all soon. Take care. Goodbye.